think we should start dramatic. Like,
Y'all ready?
we broke out of quarantine. We're still quarantined, technically speaking. 6 feet.
All right, here we go. Well, back. No, we're not. Hey, well, well, all right then. We're back, and we're going to talk today about coronavirus because everybody everywhere has got to see on the mind. So we're going to talk about that today, and we're going to talk about some of the things we can do, things we shouldn't do. Either way, we want to welcome you back behind the why.
Welcome back.
This is the Ray Ellis Podcast. Let's get behind the why.
All right, before we get started, I'd like to remind you that please to go down and hit the like and subscribe button, and also to go to our Patreon account. You see that link there, and we can use the support for the podcast to help us continue to do these things that we're doing. And we also have the Instagram account. So I finally got it, Instagram, so we can stay in touch with you. So please get online, let us know what you think, and join the conversation. Today we're going to be talking about coronavirus because, as you know, it's the only thing that everybody seems to be talking about. It is crazy.
Well, I mean, it's put our life on hold. I mean, not real. Okay, here's a funny thing.
Okay.
I saw this meme, and I was like, this is too real. It had this, like, shocked face, and it said, when you realize that the way you live your life is called quarantine. And I was like, oh. I've been quarantined since, I got a real job.
The thing that's been crazy is that the way people have been reacting.
Yeah.
It's unlike anything we've had before in this country.
Yeah.
And at the same time, it's like things we've had before in this country. You and I did not live through World War II. But I was speaking with my mother and just talking about the condition, the way things were, even doing that, the rationing and all the things that when I was like, I didn't realize that in my little hometown of Selma, Alabama, that people were actually rationing. She goes, oh, yeah, we could only buy so much of this and so much of that. And how that changed things so drastically. But what I do remember, and people my age will also remember this, and these are from the memories of a child, so forgive me if some of these things are off color, off task, or off point, maybe might be a better word. But when I was a child, the big thing was the polio epidemic. And we had just this scare in the country about polio.
Right.
And I remember even as a child doing the March of Dimes campaign, we had our little envelopes with the little slots, and you put your dimes in and you get $1 worth of dimes, you turn it in, and we were collecting money all over the city for March of Dimes because people were raising money to find a cure for polio. And the amount of fear that was involved with that. I just remember people going, oh, that person, they think they might have it at their house. Don't go to that house. Don't do this and don't do that. And you're like, whoa, this person's sick. Is that the polio? Didn't know what polio was.
It's like today, someone sneezes or coughs, and it's like, do you have the Rona?
It was really serious. Yeah. But then I remember when and I remember I was first grade, and the vaccine came out, and we were poor. And so we didn't have, medical care even those days was not like we have it today. You had more like the family doctor. I remember even Dr. Allison was our family. He would occasionally come out to the house and make house calls, those kind of things. And plus, too, being black and in the South, you didn't go to hospitals and doctors' offices regularly as some other people did. You just didn't. There was a lot of fear of institutions, just part of the community. Well, anyway, I remember when the vaccine came out, and this big announcement was that we got a vaccine for polio, and we had a choice. We can get it free at school they had these mobile clinics would come to the school. They do your teeth, they do other things, but this time they were doing the shots. And Mom had arranged for us to go down to the doctor's office to get our vaccines. But I was being me, I thought, why should I go all the way down to the doctor's office when I can just get it right here at school? I'm at school. So I went and jumped on in line and got my vaccine at school. And in those days, your arms swelled up real big, and you got the little vaccine scar on your shoulder, and that proved that you had your polio vaccination. But what it did, immediately after that, all that fear and anxiety just went away.
I'm invincible.
I'm talking about in the nation. And now understand, when I say nation, I'm talking Selma, Alabama.
Right.
Okay? 6-year-old guy, that was my nation. But the fear just went away. It went away. And so when I look at what's going on today, I see dregs of that. I see that on steroids. People, or maybe it's because now I'm an adult and I can see a bigger picture. Maybe I didn't see all those things as a child, but as an adult, you start to see these things and the fear that people.
Well, also, things have changed since you were a kid. When it comes to like media, so news gets out quicker, it spreads faster.
And it's
people
more political.
Are on Facebook with all like the memes going around, and so I think because it is more politicized, and so that's why I think there is more fear probably. Like
and I want to key on that because I talk to a lot of believers, a lot of people who name the name of Christ who are just being wrapped up in this fear. And I just want to share this one thought. Jesus, in preparing the disciples for the last days, he gave this thought here in Luke chapter 21. He says, men's hearts failing them for fear and for looking after those things which are coming on the earth, for the powers of heaven shall be shaken. Now, that's one way is one of those old colloquialisms that means the powers that be are shaken. So not that God himself is shaken, but the authorities are shaken. And it's because of fear. And when I look around, that's what I see. I see the power structures in America just quaking. And I see people doing stupid stuff. I went out the other day. I hadn't gone out to the grocery store, but I went last week to the grocery store, and I just needed to get some beans and stuff, For my audience, my household, National Alert, we had about a month ago decided to transition into a plant-based diet, which is
really
so which is really kind of weird. But so we have been doing
so much has changed.
We've been doing so much plant-based, so we've been doing this all day. And I have to say, for the record, it's fantastic. Anyway, we can talk about recipes later though. But I go out and I'm going to get some beans and some rice and some things, some vegetables, fresh vegetables, things like that. And I walked into the store, and this is a week after the panic, so I'm thinking everybody's kind of calmed down. So my mind's really not on it. And I walk into the store and I'm like, where am I? Looking around. People got this serious look on their face, man. They're about their business. And I was like, is this serious? Are people really freaking out like this? So I'm getting my vegetables. And I was able to find everything I needed because I was buying fresh vegetables and everybody else was getting beans and stuff and canned goods and stuff like that. I wasn't in the same race that they were in. So I found everything I needed except for
TP.
Toilet paper. Yeah.
Like toilet paper's gone.
So I'm walking around the store and I'm not seeing anything. And I asked one girl, I said, if there happened to be a roll of toilet paper, so where would it be? She goes, oh, on that aisle. I'm like, that aisle with nothing on it? She goes, yeah, that's the one. I'm like, oh, seriously? She goes, we can't put it out before people buy it. And they just buy it like crazy. But I'm watching this. I'm going, this is all
even
fear.
Yesterday, right? So we stopped at Walmart. And we're going to buy flour. And there was none of the flour on the thing. And the guy's like, oh, yeah, I'll get it for you from, the little pallet.
They're still stocking,
I was
yes.
like, this is crazy.
He goes, what kind of flour do you want? I'm like, so now I got to prove how much I don't know. Flour in the bag.
There's all kinds of flour.
I know that. I didn't think about it then.
But it's just crazy what's going on. But in some ways, so when it all first started, I was thinking like, oh, this is totally blown out of proportion. It's like H1N1. We're going to be fine. You got the swine flu back in the day, And so I was like, oh, we'll be okay.
I survived.
Yeah. And so I was thinking like, this is just totally overblown. Like school's not going to be canceled. People just are hoping it will be. And then all of a sudden, the next week, my school's like, yeah, we're going all online. And I'm like, what? I have to teach online now? This is terrible. Like, I was not planning for this. Totally changed. I'm like, oh my goodness. And then I started hearing more about it. And I'm like, no, it is something that we should take seriously. Because people are being pretty dumb.
And you look at this, it's this component of exponential growth. That's what I think people don't understand. They'll look on the news and they'll see, oh, there's 2 cases. And so it's not a big deal. And so they go out and they do all the things they shouldn't do. And now there's 4 cases. And they're like, wow, 4 is not bad. And then there's 8 cases.
More like 4 than 12.
And then 16. 24. And then all of a sudden, you get to the point where you got 100 cases that turn into 500. And you're like, how did that happen? It happened because you're spreading the bug. Now, this is what people don't understand, is that quarantine and distancing, safe space, doesn't cure the disease. It just keeps it from growing. It's not going to cure the disease.
I think that the whole goal is let's just not give it a host,
right?
So it will die.
It's like starving Dracula to death. If he don't get no blood, he got to go back to sleep for 100 years. if you feed the booger, he's going to keep eating and keep making little vampires, right? So you got to starve out the corona. You can't feed the corona. You can't do it.
Let's get that trending. Starve the corona.
You got to starve the corona because he just
Yep.
got to have a host. If he don't get a host, he's got to go, right? And so if you don't, then what happens is this peak continues to grow like this. And it's like, it's going to be ultimately about the same amount of people that will die. It's not going to change ultimately. So I shouldn't say it this way. You'll have about the same amount of people who will get infected. That's be a better way of saying it. So that base is not going to change. What will change is this. And this steep curve is what allows or what causes or leads to the deaths.
Well, because there's not enough hospital supplies to meet the need.
All the things
which I know in New York that was going on. I know Governor Cuomo was saying like, yeah, I think he said we have 11,000 ventilators. We need like 40,000.
Right.
And so
now,
it's like,
if you had flattened that out to where you only had, let's say you needed 11,000, but you only had 5,000 people who got sick, then you have a surplus.
Right.
But because you get that much over, now all of a sudden you got a shortage, and people who would have recovered are now getting worse because they don't have the basic needs. And so that's where we come to, and that's where this fear comes in. And now we have people who are, they're seriously sequestering in their homes. You look, they got bored. You come to the door, I am the postman. It's like, and people are getting crazy scared. And, and something my son just called, reminded me of, we were talking about before, is that if you panic, you die. You panic, you die. It's that because you do stupid stuff when you're panicking.
Yeah.
When I was training in martial arts, one of my teachers always say, if you get mad, you're not thinking. He said, channel your anger into your fight. Don't let your opponent make you mad, because now you're not thinking, you're reacting. And so what you want to do is be that initiator. Even if it's a counterattack, you want it to be an initiation from your spot.
Have a strategy to it.
And so what we're doing, when you get afraid like that, all you're doing is you're just running out, you're panicking. So you buy 12 rolls of toilet paper and usually in your house you use 2 rolls in a month. But you got to have 12 now, and you buy 46 rolls, or you buy all the beans and then
there's people who actually need it who can't get it. Like, oh my gosh, I saw this story of this woman. She was like a cancer patient, so she had cancer treatment, so she can't go far, and she can't really stomach to eat a lot of things. So she went to the store to buy what she usually buys, and it wasn't there.
Right.
And so then she posted this video, being like, "Please stop, because I actually need to eat to live, and what I can eat is gone because y'all are hoarding," so stuff like that.
Don't we all need to eat to live?
No, some people live to eat.
You're right.
Some people live to eat.
Yeah, we all do need to eat to live, but
but the big thing is that we talk about this fear, and the Bible talks a lot about fear. Fear is an oppressive master. The Bible goes even so far to say that God did not give us a spirit of fear, but of love, peace, and sound mind. So we're to think clearly when we think rationally. But then we see the powers that be. And again, I am sad to say, this morning I'm listening to the news, and a Republican from Kentucky is the guy, I forget his name now, but he's the one that's kind of stalling things right now. He's kind of the voice behind, well, we might want to have this voice vote. Everybody have to come into D.C. to vote. I'm like, why? You need to get this stimulus package out. Now, last week it was the Democrats and trying to slide in all this non-related garbage into the bill. They try to get stuff in for
the Green New Deal. Too. I'm like, this is like, don't get me wrong. I'm all about being nice to the earth. Don't litter. Do all the things that can help your planet.
But don't be stupid.
This is about coronavirus, and people are sick and dying.
And I want to go on record as saying I love the earth. I think God gave it to us as a gift, but I am not for the Green New Deal. I think that's ridiculous.
No.
That's ridiculous.
Right.
But in this package, the Democrats were trying to get in. They wanted to have this race component in. That if they sign off on a bill, you had to guarantee that different races would get this amount, or which race got what amount. And it's like,
oh, so like,
yeah, it's broken down by ethnic. I'm like, why don't we just give the Americans the money that need it?
Are they trying to slip in like a reparation type thing?
Yeah, at one point they were talking about trying to get the abortion amendment funding slid in. I'm like, what is that? So all this time, they've been fussing for this for the last week and a half, people have been dying. And so then there's this news media that comes alongside. I know people hate it when President Trump called it fake news, but what else you want to call it when they don't tell the truth? There's the thing with the new malaria drug that was coming out, and I forget the name of it. Forgive me, Ryan. Maybe you can look that up for us. That malaria drug they were testing out and using. Mm-hmm. And then it was the governor down in...
talking about that, like chloroquine?
Yep.
Chloroquil.
Yeah.
I'll look up the actual name.
And the governor down in Nevada, I think it was either Nevada or Arizona. I think it was Nevada. Passed a bill saying the doctors couldn't...
Chloroquine.
Chloroquine. Couldn't prescribe it unless they had to go to a hospital because, some people say he did it because he was trying to make Trump look bad. They want to give Trump credit for it. Another one was saying that no, he was doing it because he didn't want people to hoard it because the doctor was ordering it and hoarding it at their stations. But for whatever reason, there's just given this, if you just give the answer and give the truth. What was the one guy and his wife took the chloroquine, but it was... Oh,
yeah, and she died?
Yeah, he died.
Oh, he died.
He died, I think. And she's sick. It's either he died and she's still deathly ill or she died and he's deathly ill. But the news reported that, these couple took chloroquine and now they're dying from it. It's like, that's not true. They took aquarium cleaner. They took something that was made to clean nasty fish tanks.
I'm not laughing at that. I'm sorry.
No, I'm laughing at the stupidity of it.
It's really dumb. Yeah,
but that's what I'm saying. That's what the panic will do. And when you look at this and you look at this, the ingredients, and it goes, it got chloroquine in it. How you would say that word? And so they take this junk that was designed to clean nasty fish tanks and they drink it. And then they get sick and die. And then they want to say, the media now is the one that's saying it, of course, that, that this drug that Trump has wanted to put out for everybody is killing people. It's like, no. What killed them was aquarium tank cleaner.
Oh, my word.
Won't you tell the whole truth?
That is sad.
And so this is why I mean by the panic that's out there. People are doing stupid stuff.
Well, even just like, okay, so I've been watching, not all of them, but some of the, what are they called? My brain is like, bloop.
News?
The meetings, conference thing.
Sounds like one word,
okay,
second syllable.
2 words, I think.
I need a context at least.
Where Trump and like the doctors come and they press conference.
Oh, press conference.
Got it.
Okay.
That was like too long trying to think of the word. Got it. Press conference.
She hasn't had her coffee this morning.
I haven't finished my coffee this morning. I still have like half to drink. That's why I'm like, okay. But so I've been watching the press conferences, and so I watch it live. But then when you go back and listen to different commentaries, it's so interesting to see how they slice it. And I'm like, oh, this is how it happens. Like, this is it.
Because when you listen to it in context, it makes perfect sense.
Perfect sense. So there was one where Trump was talking about the potential of this drug coming out, and he was really hopeful about it.
Right.
And then one of the reporters was like, "Aren't you giving a false hope?" And he's like, "No, I feel good about it." And the guy, and then Trump just goes off on him and says, "You're a terrible reporter."
You're a terrible reporter.
And I was like, in context, I was just listening. I'm like, yeah, he is pretty bad. He's trying to spin it, and you can tell. And Trump's getting irritated, and I'd be irritated too.
The doctor's there, everybody's there saying, and even there's a potential for this to work.
And even the doctor gets on, and he tells the reporter, the president and I don't disagree. He's just hopeful. I'm a scientist. I'm waiting to see. Like,
I want to see the clinical results.
But it's so funny. So I was listening to like CNN reporting, and they definitely did the spin on it.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my word. And then also some of the questions that were coming at the president.
Well, don't you think you're being mean to him? It's like, mean? We're talking about saving human lives. You talking about being mean for this guy asking a stupid question?
I know. And just like an irrelevant question. Because what? Do we want the president up there being like, actually, we think everyone's going to die.
Everybody's going to die. Run for the hills. Is
that great? No, you want someone who's strong and who will be like, hey,
there is hope.
We want to prevent death.
There is hope. There is hope. But no. I think you're giving false hope. Well, buddy, we're trying a drug. We're gonna see if it works.
I was like, and I think you're just really sad.
you're a bad reporter.
There's half empty. There's half full.
No, this guy he ain't even half empty. He is just empty.
Just dry.
He's just empty.
But I was looking at that and I'm like, that's just sad. And then also questions come at the president about the whole China virus thing.
Oh my
and then
God.
that went off forever. And I'm like,
let me ask you, Stu. Do anybody get upset because it's called the Spanish flu?
Or the Zika virus. That sounds
it's like it's something that happened in history. We identified because of its origin and where
West
it had
Nile, is that racist?
It's like,
I've heard
stop,
that
people,
one too.
Stop being stupid. Mm-hmm. And they want to waste time and energy talking about, well, we're thinking that you were being racist because you said China flu. And you're like, what? And one guy even asked me, do you condone people attacking Asian Americans because I'm like, yes, I condone people getting beat up for no reason. That's what I'm all about. I mean, I'm just like, stop asking stupid questions. If somebody's wrong, guess what? They're wrong.
Right.
You don't. It's not a condoning of it. Yeah. It's just a simple fact.
So I feel like all of that is just like this distraction.
But it continues to feed that fear.
It does.
And what is it? What did Roosevelt say? We have nothing to fear but
fear yourself
and the media. That's what he said. He said you have nothing to fear but fear yourself and the media. That's what he said. That's the part of the quote everybody keeps leaving out. Is you have nothing to fear but fear yourself and the media, because this misrepresentation of the facts is as bad as an outright lie. Mm-hmm. It's as bad as an outright lie because people are afraid.
Right.
And we're seeing that.
Yeah.
We're seeing people do things that are just ridiculous. Now, on the other hand, I'm seeing some very wonderful things too. I'm seeing people. I got a buddy online, a friend of mine down in Southern California, and I won't call his name because I didn't speak to him about this prior to saying this, but I saw where he had gone online. He'd gone out and bought some extra supplies. Mm-hmm. He bought toilet paper and basic necessities. Went online. He goes, hey, I have these materials. If you need them, contact me and you can get them. I'm not selling them. I bought extra because I know that people need it. So if you need it, just find me and I can get it to you.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
You know, it's not an organization. Mm-mm. It's not a government group. This is just one American looking out for the people. Now, granted, I'm going to say this brother is a Christian. He's a born-again believer. And so he's doing this as unto Christ. But you see this, and what you find is that there are some good things coming out of this. Mm-hmm. There are some good things coming out of this. And you see that, this corona, anytime we have these kinds of pressures, it's like any kind of trial that you put on a person. It's like the Bible talks about the clay. Mm-hmm. When you take clay and you begin to make something, you have to add that pressure. Right. And you have to squeeze it and twist it and get the bubbles and the rocks out of it. Because if you heat that thing up while it still has those bubbles in it, guess what it does? It's gonna crack. It explodes. Pow! And so you have to get those things out. Mm-hmm. And this, what these trials are beginning to do for us, is that as a nation, as a people, individuals, I think it's starting to squeeze us a little bit and ask the question, what do you really believe? What is really important to you? Because this coronavirus is whereas it is serious, and I don't ever want to make people think that it's not serious, at the end of the day, it's the flu. And we know in this country... They said
it's not.
It is. It's a flu. And at the end of the day, the problem is that there's a new strand of flu to which there are no immunities already built up. So we don't have any immunities working in our bodies. So even though it's flu, it's a new type of flu. And so what happens is that because there's no immunities, there's nothing in us to fight it. And because it's a virus, it affects us differently than it would if it's a bacteria. Right. And so what happens now is that every time someone gets sick, every time they get sick, their body begins to build immunities. And now it's from those that scientists can begin to build a vaccine. Mm-hmm. And so when someone gets sick and they recover, then their body has built enough immunities to fight this bug. And so we know right now that if we were to compare this to the H1N1, that we're about 6 months ahead of them in their development. They're already, this administration is already in the clinical trials. I mean, think about it. This bug came out. We got notified. I think President Trump heard about it on like the middle of January, and by the end of January, he had already closed traffic.
He acted really quick.
I mean, really fast.
I don't think he's going to have credit for that.
No, because he's not out talking about it.
Right.
He closed down travel from China because that was the source, and then we find out, shortly, a couple of weeks after that, he shut down travel from Italy because of what was going on over there. We didn't know how bad it was, and so he did the reasonable thing and just put travel bans in place. And so as a result of his quick movement, what people don't understand, and again, I think because the media doesn't want to, I mean, I understand if people don't want to vote for President Trump as president. If you really ideologically so opposed to the Republican platform that you want a Democrat at all costs, okay, I understand that.
You know what's so interesting, though? Oh, sorry, you finished your statement.
No, I was just going to say is that, but the fact that people are so opposed to him. I mean, we call it Trump derangement syndrome for that reason, because they're so deranged that they're not making sense.
It really is like an illness, I swear.
I mean, I heard Pelosi on the air this morning taking credit for the stimulus packet. I'm like, I mean, do you not listen to what you said last week?
Doesn't matter. That's like,
It's like
I think they're
last week you were about it's not gonna pass. We're gonna do this. We're gonna keep this up because he's not. And now all of a sudden it's like, no, we did this. We Democrats got together and made this happen. And it's like,
right.
I don't get it. I don't get it.
If people are honest and they really want to know the truth and they're looking at things, people are waking up. So like, for instance, there's this gal, I forget her name, man. But she had this YouTube video she did. She's voted Democrat her whole life, she said. But because of what's happening right now and with the whole stimulus packet, and then she was seeing what the Democrats were trying to put on it, and then just how it was being completely just overblown, ridiculous, the way they're trying to deal with this. And she's watching. And she just said she's just disgusted. And she's like, I never thought I'd say this. She's like, but in November, I'm voting for Trump and I'm voting for Republican up and down the ticket.
Think about it.
She's a Democrat, but it's because she's so dissatisfied at seeing just the games that are being played.
And if you wake up and look at it, you see it. If we're going to borrow their word, you get woke. If you just look at it. Because you think about it, even on the border issue, they were calling the border immoral.
And now they're saying we need to close the border.
Now we got to close the border. It's like, well, a minute ago, it was no, everybody come. Oh, yeah. These sickness and bugs and disease were coming with people then, too. Yeah. Tuberculosis. We had all these reassertions or risings of these diseases we had controlled. Even stuff like chickenpox and measles.
Right.
We're reaching certain, not epidemic, but we're getting out of control in states like California and other border states where these illegals were coming in. And now all of a sudden, we need to close the border, we need to secure the border. It's like, so now that you are afraid right now that it might touch you, now all of a sudden the border's a good idea. But when you can hide behind the walls of your platforms at home, in your big stately community, you had walls around your house with armed guards. You didn't need it then, but now that this bug don't stop at the wall, now you're like, no, we need to make sure we do this. And it's like, the hypocrisy of it is just what drives me crazy.
And I think that's what is kind of waking people up.
I hope so, because I mean, the week before, this coronavirus really got really bad. I was talking to a couple of my minister friends down south, and we were having conversations, and I could not believe the direction of the conversation that these men of God were going. And I know them both, and I know that they love the Lord. But I think, again, it's the symptoms of the Trump derangement syndrome, because they get so against Trump that they can't think straight. And I got this one video, this one guy, he's talking about, and he had all this syrupy, sweet stuff talking. And, And I'm listening to him talk. I said, you are a devil in a robe is all you are. You're quoting stuff that is anti-God, it's anti-Christ, but you're saying it with such a godly tone that it sounds kind. It sounds churchy. It sounds very sweet.
Very Christianese.
Yeah,
when you say
and I'm
that.
listening to it. And I'll have to give you that link, Ryan, so you can put that name up with this guy. But I'm just listening to that, and then I'm talking to another brother, and he's talking about, he asked the question, and this is before Corona came out. He asked the question, why is it that all the pictures you see of Bible studies, Jesus is blonde hair, blue eyes? And I'm like, where are you going with this? Well, I'm just concerned about, everybody can see themselves in the gospel except black people. I'm like, well, if you read the Bible. I was like, are you a
sinner? Because I see myself in the gospel.
I said, if you read the Bible, you'll see yourself in there. I said, you are a man of God. Preach the gospel.
Right.
Leave all this. And I finally called him out. I said, what you're doing right now, I said, whether you know it or not, I said, you are preaching this black Jew doctrine. This black Hebrew doctrine. I said, these are the same people that went in and beat up these Jews and stabbed them over Christmas. I said, that's the doctrine you're preaching. I'm not. And then his buddy comes online and goes, well, yeah, we are the real Jews. I said, I knew who you were all the time. I said, so what you need to do, and I call my other buddy by name. I said, you're being deceived. I said, you're not. I said, preach the book. Right. Forget about all this other stuff. Preach the book. God is big enough to take care of the rest of it. Just preach the book. And he got mad at me, and he goes, well, now you're dismissed. I said, okay, I'm dismissed, but, still, you're in my prayers. I love you.
It's like, just stay away from the identity politics.
Get to the book. Get to the book. Get to the book. And so we come back to this coronavirus, and we see this same type of thing happening now, is that we find that people are so wrapped up in their fear, wrapped up in their myopic approach to this thing. They can't see. Okay. They can't see.
Yeah, they can't see, and they're being stupid about it too. So I even see this like in the church. Okay, so like a lot of churches are not meeting because it's not
It's
smart.
not safe. It's not. They're not
And
healthy.
then, but that one guy in
Louisiana, Baton Rouge, Louisiana.
okay, and he's all like, we ain't gonna be discriminated
I'm gonna
against.
be a martyr
We're
for the
still
Lord.
gonna meet. And I'm like, oh, stop it.
You're gonna bring 1,000 people together in this one building.
I know. I'm like,
in
that's
one
just
place.
being dumb.
That's
Like,
just
be
being
smart.
stupid.
And he's like, we're not gonna end the church because I'm like, you're not ending the church. Last I checked, the church wasn't the building, and it wasn't meeting on Sunday morning.
What he might interrupt is his revenue flow.
That might happen.
Because people not gonna be there.
But
he wants to be in the news, so he
I was
gets himself in this
church
position.
isn't, and I think that's another thing we talk about, like squeezing and what it shows is that okay, well, if you're thinking that church is simply going on a Sunday and gathering, then you have it wrong because that's not it. So even if we can't meet on a Sunday, it's not disrupting.
Right.
It shouldn't disrupt your faith. Like, come on, people.
Shouldn't touch it.
So
I know this past Sunday morning, we had our first streaming service. And most churches I see are doing this, but we got to church on Sunday. We had a smaller size. We had 2 people on the worship team. The pastor, I was there as the associate pastor, of course, pastor's wife. We had a sound guy, and we had 3 people show up, and they sat in opposite places. And Ryan was there doing the overheads. And we had about 3 people show up who were not on staff. And they sat in different places in the church, and we had a great time. But the service was being streamed, and the rest of the congregation joined us via the internet. Right. And so the only way that this stops the church, quote unquote, is that you're not part of the church. You're part of a church, little c. But if you're part of capital C, the body of Christ, this doesn't bother you. It doesn't disrupt you at all. Fellowship with your family members, fellowship with your neighbors, those who are believers. And if you know people who are not sick, I don't see there's a problem with you getting together in your home and having fellowship. Just don't make a big deal out of it. Don't be stupid. If you're not well, stay home, stay in bed, get the rest, get the sleep you need.
And follow the law of your land. Like if they say don't go to a public park, don't go.
And wash your hands.
And wash your hands.
Cough into your elbow. Wash your hands and don't touch other people's face. Touch your face.
Because even if you do that when you're not sick, it's just weird. So don't touch your face.
Just be smart. Mind the distance. But I just want to go back to this because as serious as this coronavirus is, it will only get worse if we're stupid. You know, who was the great philosopher said?
That's so wise.
The great philosopher said, life is hard. It's harder when you're stupid. John Wayne.
There's a lot of truth to that.
Life is hard, and it's harder when you're stupid. And if you're getting stupid out there with this coronavirus, and the worst thing about it, you might be one of those guys who get it and it doesn't knock you out, but then you may take it to somebody who it does take out. So we just got to be careful. Well, I think we rode the Rona for a while, and we're going to let it go for now.
Yeah, that Rona.
But
it's going to be here for a hot minute anyway.
One of the things we're going to talk about for our next program, we're looking at doing one on the properties of pure water. Pure water and radioactivity and what that means to you. So we're going to look at that. It's going to be really interesting. I hope you guys come back and join us. And again, don't forget to like and subscribe. Hit that little bell so it'll go ding, ding, ding when we drop one for you, okay? And you can come in and join us in the conversation. So until next time, we love you. Be smart.
Wash your hands. Be
Wash
safe.
your hand. Wash your face. And join us here behind the why. Until next time, peace. Love you guys. We're out.